Good evening. One VA dude here tonight. Well, I guess everybody's been following the events in Los Angeles. Very sad watching people behaving like that. Um, so many things come to mind. I'm going to try not to go too far into the weeds, but it's obvious to me somebody is behind this, somebody's funding this. Pallets of bricks, hammers, a guy in a black pickup truck dropping off cases, boxes of face masks. Um, People carrying signs that look like they were printed professionally. Um, some of the protesters or rioters dressed in a similar manner. A lot of people burning stuff up. Nothing says you love the United States more than carrying a foreign flag while you're assaulting police officers, throwing bricks at police cars, and setting buildings on fire. Um, that's just that's just not cool. Nevertheless, um, was this a setup just waiting for the right moment for it to happen? I don't know. But there's a protest scheduled for nationwide in many different cities, scheduled for Saturday, um, June 14th, which is this coming Saturday. It's called No Kings. And you can learn about it by going to nokings.org. All one word, No Kings. They have a lot of information on there. Um, I would advise you that if you're going to go to one of these things, don't go looking for trouble. Don't engage with people. I would just advise staying away from it altogether. Um, they're anti-Trump protests, of course, and you know what? I support these people with their First Amendment right as long as they're peaceful. That's their right. They should be able to go and hold their signs as long as they're not blocking traffic. They're not um, doing any vandalizing or vandalism. They're not assaulting police. They're not disobeying the law. And they're peaceful. Nobody should bother them. Go by and give them a thumbs up. Drive by flying an American flag. That'll probably piss them off. But I wouldn't engage. A lot of these people are so far indoctrinated, you're not going to change their minds. But still, most of them are peaceful. But there's going to be agents provocateur embedded in the crowds. There's going to be people who are opportunists, whether they're paid or they're just like being agitators. I don't know. But there's going to be people in there who, you're going to have one side of people who are this way and one side that way. And you're not really going to change anybody's mind. I love to have a good dialogue with people. That's fine. I can remain civil, but all it takes is a couple people to get kind of passionate and somebody says a certain thing and eggs on this guy and then that guy and so on and so on, and then you've got a problem. They want people fighting against each other. So I would just say take the high road, be peaceful, don't engage, wish them a nice day, thank them for coming, say, look, I don't agree with you, but I'm glad you're here, and you know thank you for being honest, letting us know how you feel. You don't like Trump or you do like Trump, okay, that's fine. But there's going to be people who are going to try and they want people fighting. They want people at each other's throats. So just be wary of that. But as far as California is concerned, this whole thing never had to happen. I'm going to give a basic breakdown. In Los Angeles, you have the LAPD. They're world famous. Everybody knows who the LAPD is, the Los Angeles Police Department. They serve at the behest of the mayor, Karen Bass. Um, you also have the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, known as the LASD. They, instead of wearing the black shirt, they wear like a tan shirt, and I think they wear dark green pants or brown pants. Anyway, they have black and white cars too, but the logo on the door is a little bit different. The LASD basically has jurisdiction in all of Los Angeles County, but they really don't do much inside the city. I think they run the jail and transport prisoners and stuff like that. And they do have secondary jurisdiction if they're called for assistance. Also, Los Angeles Police Department has mutual aid agreements with other cities in Los Angeles County. And Los Angeles County is massive. I think there's about probably like 35 or 40 small cities within the county, at least that many. And they can call in those departments for backup if they need it. Also, so the sheriff's deputies work for the sheriff's department. They serve at the behest of the sheriff. He's elected by the people in the whole county, which the people in the city could vote for him too, I guess. But anyway, his deputies serve at his behest. The LAPD has a chief who serves at the behest of the mayor. And it was quite interesting. The chief was rather candid when he gave comments on TV. I thought, I'm sure the mayor was like, don't say that, but nevertheless, he was candid about it. Um, but above that, you have the governor who has the entire California Highway Patrol, the CHP, otherwise known as CHIPS, at his disposal. That's like the state police, basically. So that's a huge department. He has those resources at his disposal. And the LAPD, the Los Angeles Sheriff, and the CHP all have tactical teams, riot squads, heavy vehicles. They've all got the stuff to handle some pretty heavy duty trouble. Um, but the governor also has the National Guard. He's commander in chief of the National Guard, the Air National Guard for the state of California. He could pick up the phone and have them there. Now, of course, you've got this big issue with Donald Trump saying he's going to federalize the National Guard under Title 10, which he can do that as president. But the thing is, he uh, he didn't call in the National Guard. The LAPD and the LASD were not brought. They didn't have their full resources to bear. It's almost as if they wanted this to happen. They had the resources to stop this nonsense, but they didn't, and it got progressively worse. Pun intended. But anyway, California's showing another example of bad governance. But then they're setting a trap for Donald Trump. Donald Trump, being the impulsive bully that he is like, I'm going to send in the National Guard. Gavin Newsom is really incompetent. Okay, now you got a pissing contest between Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump. Okay, and it's going to cause people to die, is what's going to happen, because this is going to go on. It's going to get worse. Now, apparently, there's been like a cell phone store looted, liquor store looted, and some kind of a Adidas or Nike or something. One of those stores got looted, which has nothing to do with immigration. But a lot of these looters and stuff are just opportunists. They see a chance when law enforcement cannot or will not respond, and they're going to take advantage of it. It's a crime of opportunity. Um, a lot of these people, they don't really have a stake in the community. They're just, it's like the law of the jungle, so to speak. Survival of the fittest. And think of it like when you have sheep and wolves and sheepdogs. If you remove the sheepdogs, or they're busy with another flock, the wolves are going to start eating the sheep, and there's going to be nobody there to save them. So this is what's going to happen, and then you're going to see it start to happen in other states. Um, you know, the cities have these kind of problems, just like they did during 4 and 5 years ago during the summers of love, when that was going on. And if this gets these no kings protests are going to be in small cities too. They're going to be all over the place. I suspect they're going to be mostly peaceful, but they're going to have a lot of problems in the big cities. And my advice to you is don't engage. It might be tempting. Just stay home, stay away. This Saturday, I would avoid going to a sports arena. I would avoid going to a shopping mall. Who goes to a mall anymore? But I would avoid going to a place like that. Maybe not go to a movie theater. I haven't been to a movie theater in 3 years, but just, avoid large gatherings at public places. There's somebody's just waiting for something, because not only is that the No Kings demonstrations, but it's also Donald Trump's birthday, and it's Flag Day, and there's going to be a military parade in Washington, D.C. Now they're saying it's Donald Trump's, he's spending $143 million. Okay, well, I heard it was also to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the United States Army or something like that. But I don't know. A military parade, is this some kind of a plan to have the military in DC in case something kicks off? I don't know. We're not privy to the intelligence, nor should we be, but we're not privy to that information. But I just got a feeling in my bones that something's going to kick off. Somebody's going to try something. Um, with all this going on, everything else that was in the news just kind of went by the wayside. Even the stuff about the big, beautiful pork bill, that kind of went away. This they're not even talking about Joe Biden's auto pen anymore. So, is this a psyop? Is this a distraction? I don't know. Is Trump playing 3D chess, or is he falling right into the trap? Um, Earlier, I'm not so sure I feel this way now, but this morning I thought that they have you know, uh, this stuff going on that Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom are laying a trap for Donald Trump because they know he's impulsive. They know he has a narcissistic personality and he likes to be the 800-pound elephant in the room. And with all this stuff going on, they're almost daring him. Yeah, send in the military. Send in the military because they want apologies to the singer Neil Young, but they want their four dead in Ohio. They would love for Donald Trump to send in the Marines and and federalize the National Guard and have soldiers there, and then a couple knuckleheads pick up some bricks and throw them at the police or throw them at the Marines, and then you see 308 tracer rounds going into a rioter, and you got a couple dead rioters on the ground because the military, they have different weapons than the police, and the military don't use the same rules of engagement. The Marine Corps, other than the MPs, they're not trained for civilian law enforcement. They're trained in urban warfare. They're trained to kick ass and take names, for lack of a better phrase. Um, you know, I was only an Army guy. I was in the reserves for several, 8 years, but I was never deployed or anything. But we did some training for things like that. And when you're in a situation like that, people start chucking bricks at you. That's lethal force. Whereas a police department might say, "Hey, stand down, don't use lethal force unless you know they present a firearm." But the Marines they ain't gonna play around. Um, they're gonna bring, if you grab at the bull, you're gonna get the horns. And they would actually want that because then it would be like, oh, authoritarian Trump, he's trying to start a civil war, this and that. So I'm afraid Trump might fall into their trap. Now I'm not so sure about that, but I did feel that way this morning. Um, if the problem with Donald Trump, it's like, well, he doesn't have constitutional authority to do that. Well, he does, but he really needs to be very, very careful about this. Um, the last time I know of that the National Guard of a state was federalized was I wasn't even born yet. It was 1963. I believe it was Orville Faubus, the governor of Arkansas, was using the state National Guard to keep the school segregated. And Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was president, sent in the I think it was Eisenhower. He sent in the um, he federalized the National Guard and said, okay, you're under my orders now. And he sent in some people from 101st Airborne and said, desegregate the schools. And I believe there was one other time, it might have been with Governor Wallace in Alabama. I think there was another time, it might have been LBJ. Yeah, maybe it was LBJ. I don't know. I'm getting my years mixed up. I want to say it was in the 60s. It might have been a little bit earlier than that. But I know LBJ did something with it. And nevertheless, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But um, Donald Trump could do this, and he would probably be within his rights because the city was unable to restore order, the county was unable to restore order, or I should say, unwilling, and the state had plenty of resources available, and they didn't restore order. And because that stuff was allowed to go, it kept going worse. If these people who attacked those federal agents, if they would have been cuffed and stuffed right away, hit with some rubber bullets, some tear gas, you know, maybe a little wooden shampoo or something, the ones who were really violent, that would have nipped it in the bud, and the rest of them would have said, whoa, we don't want some of that. But because nothing was done, it just went on and on and on. And the optics of people flying foreign flags in front of burning police cars and torched buildings and rubble in the street and graffiti everywhere, that's not going to be the image that you want to present to Mr. and Mrs. America out there. It's not, as they would say, it's not good optics, but it's also not going to be good optics for Trump if he sends the military in there and some automatic weapons fire gets touched off and some people die. It's not going to look good either. But anyway, Trump could do that. The only thing is, there were federal agents, federal officers were attacked and trapped in a building and surrounded, besieged. They were in danger. There were other people, they were throwing bricks at vehicles, and that could qualify as lethal force. And the state and the city and the county didn't do anything. So now you've got federal agents under assault when they're serving federal warrants. They're operating within the authority of their job. That makes it a federal issue, and Trump could say, hey, they're in danger and we have to go get them, send in the military. But this also, whenever you do something like that, you establish a precedent. So let's just say it's years down the road and there's a Democrat president, because Trump is a Republican president. You're going to send the military into a deep blue state with a Democrat governor. People are going to look at that they're going to give the stink eye when they look at that. But then suppose it's years down the road and you have a Democrat governor and there's something going on. Let's say there's something going on in Tennessee, and you have, let's say, I don't know, Memphis, and you have a demonstration going on and they're trying to pass a gun control law. Well, maybe not Tennessee. Let's say my state of Virginia, and the Democrats are getting all uppity about passing more gun laws, and you have a peaceful demonstration of a bunch of gun owners there, and then there's an agent provocateur in the crowd. Somebody makes something go sideways. Well, let's say it's too much for the police to handle. What's to stop a Democrat president from saying, okay, we're going to send in the Marines and we're going to attack civilian gun owners, and they're going to say, oh, they're domestic terrorists. And of course, the media will parrot that narrative. So, and then everybody will be looking at it like, but just, once you do something, you establish precedent. And it's not whataboutism like pardons or anything like that, but you same thing with the Patriot Act. When George Bush came out with the Patriot Act, the Democrats are all mad, the Republicans are happy. And then when Obama came into office, it's like they switched roles. Now the Republicans suddenly are worried about civil liberties, and the Democrats are like, well, we have the surveillance state now. So that's the big problem we have with this stuff. When you establish a precedent of something being okay when we do it, okay, you give the government that power, but the other people are going to be in charge of the government eventually. You're not going to have one party rule forever. I know a lot of people would want that as long as it's their party, but life doesn't work that way. So I really wish they all should have handled this better. When this first kicked off, Donald Trump should have called Gavin Newsom and say, hello, Gavin, this is your president. I want to let you know I have great federal resources. We have the best federal resources. I'm going to give you anything you need. You just pick up the phone and I'll have soldiers there ready for you. But it's your state. You run it. And then Gavin Newsom could have said, thank you, Mr. President. Hey, this is getting too much. Can you help us out and work together? But no, they have to get into a Peter pulling contest with each other. It's just, it's irritating. I don't know if Newsom wants to be president in 28. I know Trump can't run again. So why does Newsom have a big beef with Trump? He can't, Trump can't run again. He's done. He's a lame duck. He's going to be out of there in January of 2029. But this could have been handled without people dying. Now it's almost like Newsom and Bass want things to get bad. And then they're accusing Donald Trump of wanting to start a civil war, but Donald Trump is probably really worried about he doesn't want to start one. I think if he had wanted to start a war, he would have sent the military in back in 2020 during those riots. He was still president then. But, um, in 1992, when they had the LA riots, George H. Bush called Governor Pete Wilson at the time and said, "Hey there, Pete, I've got military soldiers. I'm going to offer them for your use if you need them." And they did deploy some, but they were not sent there as law enforcement. They were just like as backup. I don't know if they actually engaged in anything, but he didn't just send them in there willy nilly. You have to be really careful, because if you get on the road of, well, we're going to do this because it's an emergency, well, then politicians are going to find a real quick way to classify every situation as some kind of emergency so that they can take people's rights, whether it's free speech rights, free movement, search and seizure, your right to bear arms. Whatever, there is always going to be a way that they're going to try and get you to give up freedom in the name of safety or in the name of an emergency. And we have to be very, very careful about that. But that's all I'm going to say about that. I hope cooler heads prevail. And here on where I live, it is 20 after 8. So it's still daylight outside behind me. But it's going to be dark probably in another half hour. But, I just hope everybody stays safe out there. I hope you have a good week. And, if you plan on going to this No Kings thing, just whatever side of the aisle you're on, or if you're independent or whatever, don't engage with people. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Don't make a spectacle out of yourself. And speaking of protests, I saw some of the video from California, and there were a lot of people with signs that look like they're made by professionals. And the pallets of bricks, the hammers, the masks. These people are communicating somehow. It's not spontaneous. I don't know who's behind it. I don't know where the money is coming from. There's probably groups affiliated with USAID somehow that the money gets back. But there's a lot of nefarious people who have a lot of government money, and they don't always spend it to benefit the country or the taxpayers. But anyway, that's about it. My throat's kind of raspy. I don't smoke. I know I sound like I smoke 3 packs of Camels right now, but I don't know. My throat's just kind of dry. I don't know what it is, but I went for a long walk earlier. Maybe that was it. But I hope everybody has a great night, and just fly your flag, be a patriot, and know that things might suck, but the United States sucks a hell of a lot less than just about everywhere else, if that's the way you want to look at it. I've been to 35 countries on 3 different continents, and I think we got it damn good here. It's not perfect. We have our issues, but there's nowhere else I'd rather call home. I mean, I love something about every place I went. There was something about it I liked, but I just feel at home here. And now that I'm over 60 and I'm retired, I don't know. I'd like to see Israel, Egypt, Australia, New Zealand, and South America. Those are the things on my bucket list. Maybe I will. I'm just not in any hurry to go anywhere right now. Keep it stateside for a while. But everybody be safe out there, and peace to y'all.